Shane was always a bit of a jerk towards me. I guess with his skinny shape and Jill's rather large shape, it was enough for me to know that he'd probably look back on this party as a bit of a social faux pas. And in the living room, ouch. But despite all that, this was the most action in the house at the time. We were all new to this and we were learning as we went. After a while, people moved around and one thing led to another, and someone said, "Hey, I'm going to the store for some smokes. Anyone want to go?" Incredible! What a night this was turning out to be. Remember, I was pent up, and I think we all were, from having gone to Holy Ghost Catholic school. A school where any field trip is a journey into moral adventure. Chris and I went to the convenience store a few blocks from the party house. He couldn't believe that I wanted one of his cigarettes. I had to convince him that I smoked. I didn't smoke much, I just dabbled, but these things aren't relevant when trying to move up the social ladder a bit. Plus we were about to graduate, so one by one, social norms were being knocked down. I knew I'd be meeting all new classmates in high school. Still, it was important to take advantage of any opportunity to hang out with more popular guys in the class. He bought the smokes with ease, and we both came out of the store. He jumped up onto the trash can near the entrance of the store and sat down and began packing the cigarette pack with his hands. He banged and slapped and packed that thing until it looked half crushed. "What do you think about this party?" he asked. And I said, "It's great. I've never partied with you guys before. We should do this again." I was proud of myself. And he responded by saying, "Are you kidding? This party stinks. Everybody just wants to goof off. I'm wanting to do some real partying, like with beer." "Beer? Hell yes. Can you get some?" I asked eagerly and sincerely. "No, I'm broke now, and besides, who can buy? Not me. I'm not from around here." He began to speak through a cigarette in his mouth. "Me neither. I'm about lost. A beer would help," I bemoaned. "Well, let me have a smoke," I said. "You smoke, Joe? I can't believe that." "Oh, it's true. I'm a regular Marlboro man." Of all people, Joe smokes. Amazing. I had made a critical social advance with just days before graduation. The smoke was good. We walked back to the party house, and by now some kids were being picked up by their parents. It was getting late. As I waited for my mom to pick me up, I sat with Kyle while he waited for his mom too. Kyle was also still popular after all these years at Holy Ghost. We suddenly had some talk time, and we utilized that opportunity to the best of our ability. He opened up a new field of thought for me. "I think bodily functions should sound like their names," he blurted out. "Like when you burp, it should sound like burp, and when you fart, it should sound like fart." He raised a leg for the full effect. It was just a demonstration, though, not an actual fart. "That's brilliant!" I exclaimed, because at this time this was a breakthrough in joke potential. We were getting into some valuable and constructive use of time. "From now on, whenever I burp, it'll sound just like that, burp. And whenever I sneeze, it'll sound like that, sneeze. And when I cough, it'll sound like cough," I announced proudly. He capped it off with, "I'll have to get back to you on the word fart. I don't know if I can make that particular sound down there." I had made another critical social advance. It was a good evening indeed. A few weeks later, Holy Ghost put on a school dance. It was the first dance we had gotten as a class. No one in charge seemed to know what they were doing, but we did it. Of course, I hated the idea since I didn't dance. Making music always seemed like a more noble pursuit, since not everyone could do it, and it didn't involve any unnecessary gyrations. Not to me, anyway, as I was new to rock and roll and MTV had just been born. The dance was held in the gym, so it was ironic. We had done so much in that gym in the years leading up to 8th grade. I could remember the blood, sweat, and tears I had dropped on that hardwood floor. I remembered the Cub Scout banquets, and the bingo sessions, and the auctions, and the plays. The gym was a very useful part of the school. This time the lights were turned down, and there were streamers, and someone had put together a large stereo system on the stage. We heard our favorite rock and roll records at top volume. I was very happy about that. ZZ Top had just put out Eliminator, so we all jammed on that, among others. I hung out with my usual band of anarchy-minded pals. We raided the girls' bathroom, or attempted to raid it, only to realize that the girls had a larger bathroom than the boys, with a lounge attached. They had actual couches to relax on, with cushions. We boys got ripped off there, I thought. Eventually, we made our way to the boys' bathroom for pure random misbehavior. We immediately climbed up onto the brick wall that protrudes into the bathroom from the outside wall. It was just a couple of feet below the ceiling that the wall ended. Plenty of room for an 8th grader to climb up on the wall and push up the ceiling tile. So, of course, we did just that. We pushed up a ceiling tile and looked up into the attic of the gym building. It was huge. We were determined to know that building inside and out and cause some mischief at the time. Suddenly, we heard the janitor coming down the hall. We jumped down and ran out of the bathroom and down the hall. I remember John J. laughing and running down the hall with all speed, saying, "Shit! Get the hell out of here! He's coming! Yeah, this is so cool!" He was a great enabler. It was our pleasure to get into trouble during the dance in the last week of school, but we did not get caught. We eventually made our way back into the gym to the dance, and the janitor was nowhere in sight. We blended in. The music was still blaring with some Peter Frampton when I saw Catherine. She was beautiful. Again, being out of school uniform and in anything else made the female students that much more enjoyable to look at. But I was really shy, so I avoided her. Angela came up to me and said, "You want to dance?" And I said, "Sure." So we danced casually and at a good distance. It was a slow song, the only kind of song I could actually dance to at that point. And so she asked, "Did you see Catherine? Did you talk to her?" "No, I'm scared. I'd love to dance with her like this, but..." "Just ask her to dance," Angela said. "Don't be afraid. What's the worst she can say?" I can think of a lot of things she could say. Again, it was good to talk to Angela. "You'll do fine. You're a good-looking guy." "Thanks. I guess I should be trying to dance with you. I am trying, you know. Even slow dancing was a challenge for me." "You're doing fine. Remember, girls like confidence in a guy." "Yes, that's true. Thanks again. You're a pal." When the song was over, we split up, and I looked around the room for Catherine. I didn't see her until the next song came on, and it was another slow song, and then I saw her. She was dancing with Shane. For some reason, that really got me down. I gave up and left the gym. In retrospect, what a loser I was. And that was the end of the dance for me. We had parent-teacher-child one night, one last time for our class because we were about to graduate. My mother and I went into the classroom for Mrs. Wheaton first. Mrs. Wheaton was very nice about me to my mother, as I expected. That meeting went almost unnoticed by me because I was worried about the next meeting, our meeting with my other homeroom teacher. Sister Angelina's classroom was the cleanest room in the whole school. Having the oldest and most mature students wasn't the only reason. She was also strict. We considered her to be one of the top 3 meanest nuns in the school. She was saved for 8th grade, though, our last year. We all dreaded our last year a bit because of her. My mother and I walked into her classroom, and for once I was invited to sit up close to Sister Angelina's desk. I was petrified. My mother was, and still is, a real sweetheart, so when that evil nun started talking to my mother, I felt an unnatural calm in the room. I looked around and reminded myself that there was no class behind me, making noise and judging me. They discussed my grades quietly, and suddenly Sister Angelina turned to me and said, "See, Joe, I'm not out to get you." Try to do the Irish accent. The hell she wasn't. My mother must have told her that I said something like that. Thanks, Mom. I always wanted to tell that nun off, but in my own way, at the time of my choosing. I wouldn't get another chance like this, so I blew it off. I just looked at that nun like she was a filthy liar, and everyone knew it. I only wish I could have told everyone the truth. I couldn't even open up to my own mother, not for real. The truth was, she and most of the other nuns were bitches. That's bitch in every negative sense of the word. I cannot stress that enough. As an adult, I can judge their actions and attitudes as obsessively controlling and sadistic. If you don't know what sadism is, please look it up. Meanwhile, I'll tell you, it's the taking of pleasure from the suffering of others. It's a prime and fundamental part of being a God pusher, especially when that Godism is being pushed onto kids. Please let that message sink in, if none of the rest of this book does. Talking to adults about anything serious was always a gamble when I was a kid, and we really tried hard to avoid it. Most serious discussions weren't for us, in our opinion. It was either schoolwork, which we couldn't talk positively about, religion, which we can't talk honestly about, or it was about when we got into trouble. There were few times when we ever spoke seriously to adults. There was never a time when they asked us to vent our opinions and frustrations to them. In many respects, we quietly considered all adults to be our enemies. We especially hated Holy Ghost school. Anytime we behaved, we were frightened into doing so. That built up a natural and healthy resentment in us. So we felt obligated to return some of the favor, just a little bit, during school, but after we graduated, it would be a more intense situation. Graduation was a giant anticlimax to cap off our time at that school. Like confirmation in so many masses, we had our school graduation ceremony in the church, in the form of a church service. We didn't even get to hang out in our school together one last time. We were all dressed up, and I was in my dark blue suit, the only one I owned at the time. I looked good. Most of the other students looked good too. But Jimmy stood out, as usual. He wore his father's white suit, which was way too large for him. We knew it was his father's suit because he said so out loud several times in his usual professionally obnoxious way. Again we lined up into the church, and again we sat through another boring and unnecessary mass. Again I got sick, but I didn't leave. I was determined to stay for this one. We lined up at the altar to receive our school diplomas, and when I got mine, I turned and walked back to the pews again, just like everyone else. The whole time I was thinking, is that it? We still don't get to meet God? 8 years coming to this church, more than 8 years, and they have the nerve to give me a piece of paper instead of something I can use? Where is this stupid God? We never got to meet God. They never even tried to introduce us to him. He never showed up, but they loved him anyway. All that work and all that pain, blood, sweat, and tears, yes, all three came from me and hit that marble church floor over the years. I still have a bad knee and some back problems from all the kneeling in prayer. I believe that excessive kneeling in childhood can cause knee and back problems later in life, so I have those two things to show for it. Even through 8th grade, we had to do all that kneeling, as if we hadn't grown or matured or earned the right to stay off our knees a little more often. We still had to begin every class with a group prayer, and sometimes we had to kneel in the classrooms themselves. The classroom didn't have kneelers. I hated kneelers, but I realized that they were there to lessen pain, and that without them, we'd be in a lot more pain. The nuns wouldn't let up on us having to kneel so much, so we just hurt more from it.